And we're live. Hi, everyone. This is Remy. So I'm going to try to do a screencast uh, from the blog post I wrote a few days ago about asynchronous requests in Rails. And I'll be following along the blog post basically. So if someone is more keen to learn through video, they won't have to read the whole thing. Okay. So the context is let's say you have like a blog on your app, and so your posts are sorted from newest to latest, and that can be a lousy way to browse a blog. You might want to filter posts by topics or categories or anything. So what you could do is just to add a few filters on top of your posts. So I'm just gonna refresh these. Okay. So let's say now I have like three tags, categories, whatever you want to call them. And what I'd like to do is allow my users to click on one of the tag and have this part, the feed, to refresh, but not the whole page to reload. So basically just manipulate the DOM and have the post just update this section. If we go there, if we inspect the whole thing, so you can see here, what I like to do is just to refresh the different elements in this section. Okay, so that's why we're going to do now. Okay, let me show you how it looks. So first of all, we do have like basic roots. So a root for to list our posts. So you can see resource post with an index. That goes to a controller blog post. That's our controller. So right now, what does it do? It just take all the posts, store them into the instance variable at posts, and just give it to the corresponding view. This is what we had just earlier. So you can see my apps blog, some buttons here. Each button has its own ID. That will be important later. And the section where the actual blog post feed appears. So you can see that's another thing that's important here. I have an element with an ID, and inside that element, I render array is partial. Why? Well, first of all, that can be convenient to clean your code, but here in our case, it will allow me to render partial from the Rails controller later. Sorry. Okay, so speaking of partial, let's see how it looks over there. So I'm just taking all my posts, I loop on them, and I create a clickable title with an except. That's what we have here. I have a link, an except. Very basic thing. Okay, now what I want to do is, as I said, I want to be able to filter my posts. Sorry. Oh. Okay. So how I'm going to do this. I'm going to use both JavaScript, some vanilla JavaScript, so the fetch method, and Rails built-in partial rendering. All right. So this is how our codes look. Here my JS file is in my, let me show you, JavaScript packs. So I'm using Webpacker to compile my JavaScript. It allows for auto reloading, so that's pretty convenient. You don't have to reload the page every time you change something. Okay, so here, what I do is I store this section, the element of this section, so the section where my post list is embedded. here these are all my buttons, and for each button I had an onClick event triggering a function that I call filter posts. So I'm going to write it now. Filter posts. Alright, so this is a very basic thing. Why am I like wrapping my fetch method inside a method? Well, because as we've seen, it allows me to only fetch the new data when I need it, when someone clicks on it. Okay, so now what we're gonna do? Okay. The fetch method works like this. So we have fetch. Then the first parameter is supposed to be the URL where you want to send your request. So I'm usually calling this action URL. Then the other parameter are some kind of like the configuration. So we will specify there the method, the HTTP method request we want to do, some headers, and some other stuff. I'll show you later. Once we have this fetch thing, so now what we want to do is to, let me just check if I have everything right. So I have my fetch. All right, this is, yeah, not going there. This is going here. Okay. So here, this part is where I go and ping my controller, my race controller, and then I want to handle what's called the response. The response is it's like a really tricky word. It's some kind of data stream. So I will get a response. We'll see that later, and I'm going to handle and do something with it. All right. This is a very these are the bones for your fetch method. So fetch takes a URL, which we're going to define now, and then can take like other parameters, like a headers or something, and then you can do something with the response. So what we're going to do first is create action URL. So what the action URL? Here, what we want to do is we want to get a URL with, let's say, a query in it, category or Ruby or something, okay? But my action URL is just my basic URL, it just posts, okay? So now what's going to do is it's going to go ping my controller on the index method. Why? Because the URL posts refers to the index method on my blog post controller. Okay, fine. That's what we wanted to do first. Now I'm going to show you what's going inside the fetch first part. Okay, so here, as I said, we need to define our method. So today is going to be a get. I'm just getting some information, no posts, no anything. Now I'm specifying the headers. So the headers is the bit of a tricky part. Well, you have different things in them. So you have the CRS of token to protect your. What I usually do for these is I just copy and paste them because, well, at some point you've got to make room for more interesting things. And I'm gonna walk you through the whole thing as well. Alright. Okay, so my headers. This is a CSF token, so it allows your Rails app to know that the request you're doing is not malicious or coming from some other website or anything. This specifies your apps that this is a AJAX request, so in asynchronous request. So no refreshing the page or anything, just like I ping you, you give me something back. This is the type of content we accept and we expect to come back. And then we define the credentials and we just say this is from the same app. We are sending a request to our own app. Usually you can, like, for a simple fetch request, you can just copy and paste the whole thing and just change that to a post if you need, or this to a JSON if you expect a JSON instead of a HTML. Alright. Okay, so now we sending something to our controller. Now remember we said that when I click on Ruby, I expect like these two posts to appear. Well, let's say we expect that one and this one to disappear. So to do that, we need to send our controller the category. So you can see that here I could add a category. Okay. I also need to add them here. So if I click on the Ruby button, I need to pass Ruby, JavaScript, and remote. Okay. So now when I click on Ruby, inside my filter post method, I'll be able to access Ruby, JavaScript, and remote keyword. So now I can show you if you want. All right. Let me open my console. Okay. See? Okay. All right. But now, remember what I said. I need to recreate this. So my action URL won't be posts alone. I need to add some dynamic filtering. So what I can do is I usually like to. I could basically just add the category keyword in a string interpolation here. Or what I usually do is I couple things. Okay, so these will be my parents or category parents, and I will say create some string interpolation. Category. Okay. So now I'm taking my category. I create a string with it that says like a query params, and I will add that bit to my action URL. Now my action URL is not only post, it's post plus a category. I could create some logic that says if there's no category, do something else. But for this like essay, for this like very basic tutorial, we just stick with the simplest case. Okay. Now we can check if that works. So I'm gonna have a breakpoint here. and just click on Ruby and see if, yes, in my terminal you can see, so this is my server. And so I clicked on the Ruby button. It sends a request to my controller. And now I can check my params. And you can see that, I don't have my category. Okay, let's go back. Let's refresh. I'm just going to reload my page. Okay. Add the breakpoint again. Click there. Yes, that's better. So now I can access in my controller the params category. So now I can work on my controller to handle this case. So if I have a params category and value is present, what I'm going to do, I want, let's go there. So if I have params category, what I want to do is filter my posts with this category. So I'm going to take all the posts whose category match the one stored in my params. Otherwise, just give me everything. Now, this is the part where this like the very magical thing with Rails. You can either return a list of posts to your view to index, or you can directly render a partial. So in our case, it's called post list. That's this one, and you can give it everything it needs. So I'm looping on the variable posts, which will corresponds to add post, and then I just sync to Rails. No need to look for a layout or view or anything. I'm just feeding you the whole thing. Here, this is not going. This partial will not. It won't interact with the view directly. We're feeding this partial to our method here. It will come back as the response. Okay. So now I'm going to need to handle that response. Okay. So the first thing I usually do with this is I just check if my response status is a 200, means everything's okay. If I have an error, I usually handle it and display a message to my user or something. I won't do it here, but you can do it if you need to. Then, if the status is okay, everything's fine, you can move on. So the response is a data stream. So inside the data stream is my partial that was already interpreted by Ruby and converted as a full HTML block. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stringify this with the text. Then I'm going to store a stringified response as in the keyword content. And when this is done, I'm just going to take my post list. So remember, post list is this section, and again I'm going to replace the inner HTML. So what I'm going to do is now inside this section, there's a HTML with several blog post titles, links, and stuff. I'm going to replace this with my new string default partial. Inner HTML equal content. Okay. Let's see if this works. All right. I'm gonna refresh this. Okay, so let's see in our console what's wrong. Well, okay, so Ruby block feature. Alright, so something's wrong here. Of course. Here, category is not defined, sure. So that will be param category. Okay. Debugging, that's all we do all day. Okay. Alright, now it works. So here is our basic feed. I'm a user. I'm only interested in remote working posts. I click on this. So when I click, I send the JS send a request to my Rails controller, which check if there's a params category build. If there is, it just fetch the post where the category is equal to the category passed in the params, and then it renders the whole partial with everything. And then it sends it to my JS file. We stringify this, and then we replace the whole inner HTML of the section by the new stringify portion. And bam, that's done. All right. I hope it was useful for you people. And let me know on Twitter at mercieremi, MERCIER_RREMI, if that was useful or if I missed anything.